how much?
Full. 4.5.
No, he was
6
born
pounds 10.
6'2" or something.
4.5 pounds.
6'2", that's a nice size.
To into the various beforeshim. So Paragimel Pasuk Aleph, the Anar Shmuel Mishares Es Hashem Lifnei Eli. It's a very unusual phraseology that Shmuel was serving God Lifnei Eli. So the Yalkut Shimoni takes note of that.
Sorry, what pasuk?
Okay, so we're on Paragimel Pasuk Aleph.
Aleph.
We're going back because we learned the parsha without the meforshim. So I want to explain a little bit more in depth this week the various things that we can learn from Paragimel. So it says Vanar Shmuel Misharet et Hashem. It should have just said that. So it says though Lifnei Eli. So it should have said Vanar Shmuel Mishares es Eli. Mishares means he's a servant of, or he's working under, or he's working for. So what is this double language? Mishares es Hashem lifnei Eli. So says the Yalkut Shimoni. V'chi lifnei Shechina haya omed. Shmuel was not really at that when he's servicing Eli, he's not standing before the Shechina. Ela kozman shaya omed lifnei Eli, ki ilu omed lifnei Shechina. So when a person is mishares a Talmid Chacham, let's say somebody worked with Rav Moshe Feinstein as his gabbai, or so in the time of Shmuel serving Eli. Chazal see that as if you're standing in front of the Shechina. And says the Musar Nevi'im Ibnei Ma, why is that? Kimeshamshin es echad mibnei aliyah, that if somebody is serving the needs of a great man in Yiddishkeit, why is that? Zenechshav kamisho isim ken lifnei hashchina. Zeu mishum da kavod shenotnim lo. If you are serving a Talmid Chacham, therefore you're showing him kavod, honor. It's because that the Talmid Chacham is actually the one who's serving God. By honoring the Talmid Chacham, you're honoring Hashem. It's all about giving kavod to Hashem. That's why we learn in Baba Kama, Shedorash Rabbi Kiva, Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. So the Torah could have just wrote, Hashem Elokecha Tira. You shall fear God. What do you mean, Es Hashem Elokecha? What does that add? This actually concludes a very famous Gemara by Shimon Amsoini. Chazal say he darshaned every S in the Torah. For example, Breishis bara Elokim, Es hashamayim, the Es haaretz. In Hebrew, you could say Breishis bara Elokim, hashamayim, the haaretz. What does the Es hashamayim? Es is the heaven and the earth. But when you say Breishis bara Elokim, hashamayim, the haaretz, it's the same thing. So in Torah language, whenever there's an extra word that seems superfluous, that you don't really need, so Chazal Darshan, they will learn something new from that extra word, and that's throughout the Torah. Torah Shabbat Peh is full of that. So Shimon Amsoini, and it's usually S. Usually comes to add something. For example, it says, it includes, even though the Torah, the pasuk only includes this and this, the S adds somebody else. So Shimon Amsoini went ahead and he darshaned every S in the Torah. Says the Gemara, until he came to the pasuk, Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. You shall fear God. Well, S, what is that coming to include? Is there somebody beyond Hashem that we're supposed to fear? So Shimon Amsoini said he was poirish. He elected, I can't darshan this. Now, if I can't darshan this, it must be that it's not appropriate to darshan all the other esim. And this pasuk of Hashem Elokecha Tira appears in like Sefer Dvorim. So he had darshaned hundreds of esim, and he gave it all up. This was his life's work. Think about a PhD who writes a thesis. That's his life's work. Well, that's what Shimon Amsoni's life work was. And Chazal say, Kishem shekibalti schar ala drisha, kach kibalti schar ala prisha. He was a servant of Hashem. Just like if he gave me a reward because I darshan these words, now that I see that it was not appropriate to darshan it, I will get schar for being humble and understanding that my mind is not Hashem's mind. So the Gemara doesn't conclude there. It concludes with this statement of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva basically resurrected all the drashas of Rav Shimon Amsoini, because Rabbi Akiva said, "L'rabois tamidei chachamim, es Hashem Elokecha Tira." You know who else you have to be fearful? Tamidei chachamim, and that's now how we understand what it means. Vanar Shmuel mishares es Hashem lifnei Eli. By serving Eli, he's showing yira to the Talmid Chacham. And by virtue, it's showing yira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Which
Go ahead, Ellen. Ernie?
V'zeu mishum ki hayira me'tamidei chachamim zugu.
Wait, they're asking you something.
I understood that. I'm finishing the drasha. Zeu mishum ki hayiras me'tamidei chachamim zegufa hiyiras hamakom. Show. Now, when we say fear, that means you have to show reverence. You shouldn't interrupt him. There are all sorts of dinim of yira. The fact that they're a great Talmid Chacham is because they show yira in front of Hashem. Yes, Ellen.
which Gemara is this?
Baba Kama Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis.
When it says over here that he was a nar, he wasn't that young.
No, he was like 40 years old.
All right, so why is he called a nar here?
Okay, so that, like that, we're going to learn here. It says the same thing by Yehoshua. It says Yehoshua serving under Moshe was also called a nar.
What's the date today?
The sharp is
Beis Yud Aleph. Hang on, Beis Yud Aleph. Beis Yud Aleph.
It's the 18th.
It says the same thing by Yoshua. Mishareis Hashem. Yoshua also is called a nar in the sense that since he was subservient to Moshe Rabbeinu, he's considered a nar as opposed to the Rebbe who he's serving. That's why he's called nar. But in Enochanami, he was not young in age.
Okay, where is it here?
It's not according to another person. So Ernie, I just wanted to mention something.
Yes.
Interesting from the Yalkut Shmoni and Shimon. What's it?
It's only
Yeah, it sounds the the interpretation of the way we viewed Shmuel sounds, how he was Meshares Eli, sounds like the whole credo of the Hasidic movement. The Rebbe is your intermediary to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So everybody wants to serve the Rebbe. That's exactly the credo of Hasidus.
But it's not just Hasidic Rebbes, even the Litvische. If like I mentioned, Rav Moshe Feinstein, they were, or any Gadol has a gabbai or somebody who works with him, and he has I think his grandson Rav Mordechai Feinstein was his Meshares. So the Rebbe relationship in Chassidus is even beyond what we've just described. That's any Rebbe Talmud relationship. There's a din of Mora, just like you have. These are halachas, just like you have Kibud Av and you have Mora Av, and you have a certain din of your older brother in terms of how you have to treat him with Kibud and Mora, et cetera, et cetera. So this establishes a certain halachic relationship between a Talmud and a Rebbe. Now, what you said is even beyond. The Hasidic Rebbe is a vehicle by which the Chassid can go to heights and things like that. That's absolutely, that's in the realm of Chassidut. Oh, so in fact, here it is. The Minchas Ketana. Hinei matzinu b'Yehoshua shezocha l'malois makom Moshe. Who was the heir of Moshe Rabbeinu in leadership? Was Yehoshua. Ayidei shenemar bo umishar so Yehoshua bin Nun nar lo yamush mitoch ha'oel. The Meshares, the server of Moshe Rabbeinu, was Yoshua. He was a nar lo yomish mitoch. He never left the tent. Therefore, v'notzer te'ina yochel pirya. Therefore, the fruit, Moshe Rabbeinu, the fact that Yoshua invested the time being Meshares the Gadol gave him the ability to become the successor. Afkan, kiven shige ate Eli listalik min ha'olam. We are now going to be shown Eli is about to leave this world. Zocha Shmuel amalis makomei kilo noah zegdula. Kiven shevanar Shmuel shezor vnei Eli shlomash mitoch oil Torah. Shmuel treated himself as a dar. He never left the tent of Torah. So that you see the connection with Yoshua here. Okay.
It's very perplexing, this whole relationship with Eli, because he's judged so severely, and yet he's so looked up to.
Well, Eli was the shofet for 40 years and was the Kohen Gadol. Eli is part of the Masorah of Torah Shabbat Peh, like we analyzed. We went through the Rambam. So,
Right.
But in terms of his relationship with his sons, that he didn't give them proper musar, he's held to account. No question about it. Here, how about this? In Perek Beis, where it says ve'einav hechelu keos, Eli's eyes began to fail him. Lo yuchal, he couldn't see. Says the Medrash, Kolamami ben Rasha, sof she'enav keos. If you raise an evil child, it's going to lead to blindness in the end.
What?
Says the Musar Nevi'im, Ki be'emet yesh b'zeh b'yad ha'av l'chanech es banav shelo yirushoim. The father has the ability to educate his children that they will not be rishoim. V'tzadik shemaimi ben Rasha, if you see a Rasha coming out of a tzadik, hasibahi, then they shelo ra'ah hetevet maseh bno. He was a little bit blind to the actions of his children. Now, you know what comes to my mind? Yitzchak Avinu. And Yitzchak Avinu, the Torah uses exactly the same language about his eyesight. That Yitzchak also, and we know that Esav tricked his father. Esav was a big trickster. He showed himself to be a tzaddik. And remember, Esav Yitzchak had hopes for Esav. Rivka was more attuned to his reality. And it could be that Yitzchak also understood, but maybe he was trying to show him a favor. Sometimes you can do it with Ava, sometimes you can do it with Yira. But anyways, I thought that was an interesting comparison to what we're seeing here by Eli. So if you didn't see, or you made yourself like you didn't see what your children were doing, since your sin is really in your eyes, because you didn't look carefully at what your children were doing, then you get it's mida keneged mida, so you suffer from lack of eyesight. Then it said in Pasuk Gimel, V'ner Elokim terem yichbeh, u'Shmuel shochev behechel Hashem asher sham aron Elokim. So in Masechta Yuma, we're in the Daf Yomi now in Masechta Yuma, but we're only on Daf Vav, Daf Zayin. In Yuma Lamed Ches, it says, this Pasuk, Ner Elokim terem yichbeh u'Shmuel shochev. Rav Chia bar Rav Yochanan. Ein tzadik niftar min ha'olam ad shenivrat tzadik shekamoso. A tzadik doesn't pass away until there's a tzadik born in the world and existing who can take his place. Like it says in Koheles, V'zorach hashemesh uvo hashemesh. The sun will set and the sun will rise. I always say, the king is dead, long live the king. Like in the English royalty. That means there is never a period that we are left without leadership. Ad shelo yishaka shimsho shel Eli, not the son of Eli is not set. Zarcha shimsho shel Shmuel. Because remember, we learned this parak last week. Shmuel is going to be called by Hashem. His first nevuah occurs. So the Tanakh is telling us that the ground is being set for Eli to pass on because now there's a successor, Shmuel. Says the Musar, yeah. Okay, we don't need to learn that pasuk. Okay. Then I wanted to learn So first of all, Pasuk Gimel, when it says Shmuel was Shochev behechel Hashem, so Rashi says Bimkomo be'ezras haLevim Hashomim Beis Hamikdash. Remember, Shmuel's a Levi. The Levim don't sleep in the Beis Hamikdash; they sleep outside of the Azorah, in the place where the Levim were watching on the outside of the Beis Hamikdash. And then the pasuk said, "Behechel Hashem Achitam Aron Elokim." Says Rashi, "V'kol yatsa mehechal Hashem." The voice that Shmuel kept on hearing was emerging from the Kodesh Kadoshim. What's in the Kodesh Kadoshim? The Aron with the luchos. What's on top of the Aron? The Shtei Kruvim. And we have many chazals that tell us that the Kol Hashem comes mibein kruvim, from top of the Aron. So Rashi here says, Kol yotza mechelash mebeis kodesh kodeshim shekara l'Shmuel. Now, Eli haya kohen. Eli was a kohen, so he was showing him b'bifnim. He was inside. Ushmuel haya Levi v'shochav v'bachutz. Shmuel was a Levi, therefore he was outside. The kofatz hakol derech Eli l'Shmuel. But the voice, which should have gone to Eli, went directly to Shmuel. This is the beginning of the transition process of the nevuah going to Shmuel and not to Eli.
I thought it went to Eli. No, it's a
Yes,
Shmuel.
yes, that's what it
Then
is.
Shmuel was called 3 times. Each time he ran to Eli because he thought Eli was calling him. He didn't realize that the voice he was hearing was the voice of Hashem. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah's Rabbi Eliezer, Gedoyle hi anava. The greatest attribute is humble, being humble. Shabanis Gadel Shmuel. Because of being an Anav, that's how Shmuel became great. Sharei Karo Amalach Sholosh Pa'amim. The Malach called him 3 times. V'haya Sover Shu Eli. He thought each time was Eli. V'hayam is Dazeya v'noded Mishnah so slow. Each time he woke up from his sleep, went to Eli. Eli, did you call me? Eli said, no, go back to sleep. Shenemar v'yosef Hashem kro Shmuel b'shlishis. Until Hashem called him the 2nd time, the 3rd time. The Ilun is Goav Omar ad Masayeh Zekora Osivani Ratzu Vayatzlo. Shmuel could have said, how long is this old man going to call me? And I go to him and he says it's not me. He could have just said the whole thing and not go. If he would have taken that attitude, Ovad Bimenu Hanavu Agdoy Lazois. Shmuel didn't take that attitude. He was an Anav. And therefore, that's why in some ways he was zoicha to the nevuah that he was going to get.
Come on. Here, he's 3 times.
Then, in Pasuk Yud, it says, Vayavo Hashem vayit yatsav. Hashem came, and as if he's standing in front of him. Vayikra kepam bepam Shmuel Shmuel. He calls out to him twice, Shmuel Shmuel. Vayomer Shmuel daber ki shomea avdecha. Now, speak because your servant is listening. So let's learn a little bit Chazal. In the Yalkut Shimoni, the Yalkut Shimoni says Shmuel Shmuel, and the Yalkut Shimoni gives us the other people in Tanakh who are called out by a double name. Avram, Avram, Yaakov, Yaakov, Moshe, Moshe. There are a few psukim where they were called in a double Lashon Chiba. It's a language of love. And they were called out this way both before Hashem spoke to them and after. Rabbi Eliezer Omer echad lo ve'echad lador. What it means is one is a call to him, and one is to inform the door that this is the leader. Ein lechador she'ein bo kavram, and to teach us something. There is no generation that doesn't have somebody in it like Avram. Ve'ein lechador she'ein bo ki Yitzchak. Ve'ein lechador she'ein bo ki Yaakov. Ve'ein lechador she'ein bo ki Moshe. Ve'ein lechador she'ein bo ki Shmuel. Every generation has within it leaders that are on these kind of levels. So Yesh Anashim, the Musar Nevi'im says, Yesh Anashim shal yedei Agdula niskalkalu. Sometimes people that are raised to a leadership position, they become evil. Kimoshe Matzinu b'Yeravam, right? After Shlomo's son Rechavam, so there's a split between Malchei Yehuda and Melech Yisrael. And the first Melech Yisrael is Yeravam ben Nevat. Initially, Hayamat Toivim should be Israel. Yeravam ben Nevat started off as a tzaddik. But by being elevated to the position where he was, he ended up causing Klal Yisrael to sin because he put up idols and forbid Klal Yisrael to go worship at the Beis Hamikdash. But Elu, Avram and Yaakov and Moshe, Hayu gedolim mitchila v'nisharu b'tzid katam, gam kishalu g'gdula. It's not such a pashut thing that you become a leader or become a big person and you remain a tzaddik. But these people did. Then, in Shmos Rabbah, it quotes the pasuk that we just read, Vayavo Hashem vayit yatzav. Hashem came and as if he was standing, Vayikra kepam bepam Shmuel Shmuel. Says the Shmos Rabbah, Matzinu Moshe u'Shmuel shavin ke'echad. In some ways, Moshe and Shmuel are similar. Shneamar, Moshe v'Aaron b'choanav, u'Shmuel b'korei Shmo. That's a pasuk that we read Kabbalah Shabbos. Bo re'ei kama ben Moshe liShmuel. Let's see the differences between Moshe and Shmuel. Moshe haya nichnas u'boitz lakadosh baruch hu lishmoa dibur. Moshe Rabbeinu had to enter Ohel Moed to listen to when Hashem wanted to give him a dvar halacha. But the Eitzel Shmuel haya Kadosh Baruch Hu ba lo. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Shmuel. That's this pasuk. Vayavo Hashem, and he came to Shmuel. Shneamar Vayavo Hashem vayit yatzav. Lama kach? Why did Shmuel merit to have Hashem treat him this way? Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bidinu v'tzedakah ani boy ma adam. I come to every person. Bidin, that means does he deserve me coming? And also as it's tzedakah. Moshe haya yoshev. Moshe sat in this tent. Umisha haya lodin ba etzlo v'nidon. Klal Yisrael in the midbar. If they had a problem in halacha or they had a dispute with another fellow Jew, they would go to Ohel Moed to Moshe, and Moshe would adjudicate the problem. Shenemar vayeshev Moshe lishpot et ha'am. Right, that's in Parshas Yitro. And then Yitro, his father-in-law, sees what he's doing, and he gives him advice. What are you putting this all on your shoulder? You should appoint a system of judges. Okay. But we understand the people came to Moshe. Aval Shmuel hayatorech b'chol mededinu v'shofed. That's not how Shmuel operated. Shmuel was the traveling judge, the circuit judge. We know in early America, there were judges who were on the circuit. They went horse by horse to various towns, and they would set up a court. So that's what Shmuel did too. Kidei shlo yitztaru lavo etzlo. So it wouldn't be burdensome for Klal Yisrael to come to him. Sheneamar, v'halach midei shana b'shana. In Shmuel Aleph, Perek Zayin, we're going to see that Shmuel went to the people. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe shayashov b'makom echad l'adon es Yisrael. Moshe sat in one place, and Klal Yisrael came to him. Yavo etzli la'Ohel Moed lishmoa dibur. Moshe has to come to Ohel Moed, to my place, to listen to the various halachas I want to teach him. Aval Shmuel shahalach etzel Yisrael be'ayaros. Shmuel took the time and the trouble to get on his donkey and go from city to city. V'danosam ani olech u'medaber imo. So I'm going to appear to him. L'kayim hashenemar pelos umozne mishpat l'Hashem. Hashem is careful to mete out exactly what a person deserves. Shmuel, who went out to Klal Yisrael, deserved midin, not midin staka, midin for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to visit him. Okay, the Musar Nevi'im says like this: Uvazeh efshar leva'er madi'ita b'midbar Rabbah in Parshas Koirach. We all know the story of Korach. Korach was a very smart person. Korach shepikeh chaya. Mara alishtusa ze lachlok al Moshe v'Aaron. I mean, Korach was in Egypt. He saw Moshe v'Aaron doing all sorts of nisim. He sees Moshe going up to Har Sinai, and Aaron HaKohen is the Kohen. I mean, come on. What is Korach thinking? To go against Moshe v'Aaron. So the Medrash Rabbah there, I think Rashi quotes it there. Elaeno hitaso. His eye made him a mistake. Ra shal shelas gedula oimedes hemenu. Korach saw Benavua a tremendous lineage that it was going to come from him. Shmuel, sheshakol kamoisha v'Aaron. Right? We started off learning Sefer Shmuel. We saw his yichus was to Korach. And he saw that is going to come out of him Shmuel, who is compared to Moshe and Aaron. Again, quoting the same pasuk in Tehillim, Tzadik Tes, Moshe v'Aaron b'choyana v'Shmuel b'korei Shmo. So Korach said to himself, Omar, Efshar hagdula zu atida la'amoid mimeni v'ani edom? So Moshe Rabbeinu was giving out all these positions. This great Shmuel is going to come out of me. Should I be silent? V'hinei yesh lavin, v'chi mishum sheshmuel atid lamot mimenu sheyeh gadol, od mimoshe. It's a big deal. Even if Shmuel is going to come out of him, he's going to be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. So why did Korach think he should oppose Moshe Rabbeinu? Harei lehefech, hayal olam shebishvil gedulat Shmuel, royu shegam hu tzarech litnaheg b'tzidkus. He should understand, well, a great person like Shmuel is going to come out of him. He should also be a tzaddik. Uleblilo oirer machloikes b'Yisrael, and not create machloikes in Yisrael. V'anira shezel lefi masha amru kan, the Shmuel hayachoshav yoser mi Moshe b'zeh shelo yitnaig b'shroros kamoisoi. You know what? Shmuel did not rule over Klal Yisrael the same way Moshe did. He was more subservient. He went to the people. V'lachein Korach, kivan sharash Shmuel shu atid lamod mimenu, yishtadel livli latil Yisrael. And he was going to do it in a format without sort of a strong a physical hand on Klal Yisrael. Uvezeh yafek kocho yoter mi Moshe Rabbeinu. Lachein chashav shemutal alav lo'orer machlok al Moshe v'Aaron b'zeh shehem mitnagim b'shros al Yisrael. So he had a svara, Korach, that you see Shmuel is considered greater than Moshe. Why? Because he didn't act in such a powerful way, making the people come to him. He actually went to the people. So maybe Korach said, so maybe now is the time to challenge Moshe. That wasn't correct. It wasn't the correct svara. But the Musar Navim, based on what we're learning here, maybe seems to understand Korach a little bit better in terms of what he was thinking. Okay. Then, when it says that Shmuel heard, Vayomer Shmuel daber ki shomea avdecha. So Shmuel said, okay, speak Hashem, because your servant hears you. See, Eli had told him, Shchav, v'hayayim yukrai lecha ve'amarta daber Hashem ki shomea avdecha. Eli told Shmuel to answer in a different way, that if you hear the voice of Hashem, you should answer or speak Hashem. But the ilu b'didei ksiv bei vayomer Shmuel daber ki shomea avdecha v'lomar diber Hashem. He did not want to emit the name of Hashem levatola, and that's why in Masechta Shabbos Kuf Yud Gimel it says Tein lechacham v'yachkem od. Omer Rabbi Elazar Shmuel Aramosi. Eli told him a formula, but you know what? Shmuel was a bigger chacham, and said, and he says the Musar V'im Machmas an v'nusuna so, because of his humbleness, lo roy lasker Shem Hashem. Maybe I shouldn't respond to this voice, daber Hashem. Why? Shem ein zo shchina, aval Eli. Maybe this is not the voice of God. This is Eli. So Shmuel was being very careful about uttering the name of Hashem. Again, it's a musar for us in terms of how we speak. So in Pasuk Yud Beis, I'm sorry. So remember in Yud Aleph, Hashem says to Shmuel, Hinei anochi oseh davar b'Yisrael. At this time is going to start the punishment that I promised to Eli. One of it, says Rashi, is hilakicha sa'arim b'yad plishtim. The plishtim are going to come, destroy Mishkan Shiloh, and take the Aron in captivity. That's what's understood by Oseh Dvar Hashem. He's going to do something. And by the way, when it said Daber ki shomea avdecha, the Sifri in Sefer Dvarim says Yesh shekaru atzmam avodim, v'Kadosh Baruch Hu karam avodim. There are some people where they call themselves an Eved of Hashem, and Hashem also called them Eved Hashem. Yesh shekaru atzman avodim, v'Kadosh Baruch Hu lo karam avodim. Some people refer to themselves as an Eved Hashem, but Hashem did not call them Eved Hashem. V'yesh shelo karu atzmam avodim, v'Kadosh Baruch Hu karam avodim. Some people did not call themselves Avdei Hashem, but Hashem called them that. Shmuel kara atzmo Eved, shenemar vayomer Shmuel daber ki shomei avdecha, v'Kadosh Baruch Hu lo karo Eved. But Hashem, but we don't find anywhere where Hashem called him an Eved. Pasuk Yud Beis, we said, on that day, Akim el Eli es kol asher dibarti el Beis. So on that day, I'm going to fulfill the curses that I said are going to occur to the house of Eli. Hachel v'chalei. Means they're going to start right away. Rashi says, Oso ayom tatchil gzera si al Beis. On that day, the gzera will start. Number one, Shiamusu chofni upinchas. Chofni upinchas will die. Like we learned last week, the house, no males in the house of Eli are going to live beyond 18 years. They're going to die young.
Does it say anywhere? It must have been painful for Shmuel to have to tell Eli, his mentor.
We're going to get there, right? Right now, this is the Nevuah, Vayomer Hashem el Shmuel. In fact, the Meforshim tell us it was done this way because for the Nevuah to go directly to Eli would have been too painful. So it's now coming to Shmuel, and we're going to see soon, Shmuel does not want to reveal this to Eli. So you're absolutely correct, Ellen. Right now, this Nevuah is being told to Shmuel. So, Eli, if you remember, had told his sons, Lo tova hashmua asher anochi shomea mavrim im Hashem. Remember, he tried to chastise them. So, the Meforshim say, he protested a little bit. But Zaya le'et zikna shelo hayu yireim imenu. But Eli was older, and they weren't afraid of him anymore. So when he was younger, and they had originally started these activities, that's when he should have protested, and he didn't. So again, lessons that we learn about how to deal with people, both close to us and not close to us. Now, v'lachein in pasuk Yudalad, lachein ishbati lebeis Eli, and I take a shvua. Im yiskaper oven beis Eli b'zech mincha lam. I don't care what they do, whether they bring us a korban, bring a mincha. There's no kapara for this. So the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Ches, Rav Yochanan, minayin legzar din sheishim o shvua she'eno nikra. A gzar din that comes out in the word of Hashem with a shvua cannot be torn. Shenemar lachein ishbati lebeis Eli miskaper von beis Eli b'zevach u'v'mincha. It's from this pasuk. Says the Musar Nevi'im, V'hinei hashvua hazot haytal ma shomer mikodem lezeh bayom hu akim el Eli et kol asher dibarti el beiso achel v'chalei. That's the beginning of the shvua, and that's why the Ralbag says she'azo diulo b'dvar milchemes plishtim. He's being told that there's going to be the plishtim are going to come and sack Shiloh. Shemesu bo Rabbim Yisrael, and the Chinishbar and Hakodesh. And the Aron HaKodesh is going to be taken captive. Umesu Chopni uPinchas. The Harah Atid Lavo Lenov Ira Kohanim. We're going to learn later on in Sefer Shmuel about Shaul HaMelech and the young lad that is anointed by the same Shmuel, because David HaMelech, because Hashem tires of Shaul because of what he didn't do to Amalek. So Shaul goes on a rampage and goes looking for David. And there was a city of Kohanim called Nov. And in fact, after the Mishkan had been taken captive by the Plishtim, the Mizbeach was moved to the city of Nov, where it was for 13 years. And then Shaul comes to the city of Nov looking for David, hears that the people, the Kohanim in this, Nov was a city only of Kohanim, which makes sense. The Mizbeach was there, and therefore when Klal Yisrael needed to bring Korbanei Tzibur, they brought it to the city of Nov, because Mishkan Shiloh had been destroyed. The Aron was not there. We're going to track differently. Remember, when the Aron gets sent, the Aron HaKodesh is in Plishtim for 4 months. But it causes so much rampant problems by the Plishtim that they send the Aron back. We're going to track where the Aron was, but the Aron and the Mizbeach were separate. The Aron is someplace, and the Mizbeach is in the city of Nov. After the city of Nov is destroyed, it's in the city of Givon for 44 years. So 13 plus 44 is 57. The period of time between when Mishkan Shiloh was destroyed and when Shlomo Melech builds the Beis HaMikdash is 57 years. During those 57 years, Klal Yisrael were permitted to offer korbanos on a private bama in their backyard. If you wanted to bring an ola, you could erect a mizbeach in your backyard and offer a korban. You have to shecht it, you have to do zrikas adam on that bama and burn it. You could do that in your backyard mizbeach. But that's a korban yochid. But for example, the daily oila satomi, there's a daily lamb that had to be offered in the morning and bein arbayim. When we daven shachris or mincha, that replaces the daily tomid that was offered in the morning and in the afternoon. Ma'ariv is reshus. It's not connected to a korban. But there is, because you could burn the evorim upedorim, the innards and the fats of a korban could be burnt all night. So that's keneged tfilas ma'ariv. But remember, there's no kedusha, there's no chazaras hashatz by ma'ariv. The real tfilas is shachris and mincha, and ma'ariv was a reshus, and we Klal Yisrael were makabel ma'ariv, so now it's not just a reshus, we daven ma'ariv. So again, I'm going back. The korbanei tzibur had to be brought to the one mizbeach, either in Nov or in Givon. The daily tamid, the korban pesach could not be offered in your backyard bama. You had to go to the city of Nov or the city of Givon later on. Once a year to do the korban pesach or whatever. So let's go back. This klala to Eli extends to what happened to Novi Kohanim. Kimesu ba beis Eli. Milvad Evyatar al Yad Shaul. One Kohen remained Evyatar, but all the other Kohanim were killed. V'nirish lekach amar hachel v'chalei. Ki haschalos ha'peronios ha'isa b'milchama shemesu b'chafni u'pinchas. It all begins with the death of the two sons of Eli, Chafni u'Pinchas. V'akilu shel ha'peronios ha'ya b'inyan Nov ira Kohanim. We'll go back. I will teach that if we have some time. I want to finish the basic things, then we may go back to this. So the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara I quoted about the Omer Rava bezevachu mincha ena miskaper, aval miskaper b'Torah. Rava is a descendant of Eli Cohen. Rava lived to the age of 40. We know that the klala was you shouldn't live beyond 18. So what merited Rava to live another 22 years? Torah. Abaya Omar bezevachu mincha ena miskaper, aval miskaper b'Torah uvigmilus chasadim. Abaya lived to 60. He was also one of the ancestors of Eli Cohen. So he had a double, Torah and Gemilos Chesed. Rabba v'Abayim at Beis Eli Ka'asi. The Gemara tells us that both Abai and Rava were from the house of Eli. Rabba da'asik b'Torah chaya arboin shanim. Rabba that learned Torah lived 40 years. Abaya da'asik b'Torah v'Gemilos Chesedim chaya shisin shanim. That's the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. Says the Musar Nevi'im, Ma de oven beis Eli and miskaper v'zecha u'mincha. Why was no kapara for this? Zeu mishum darehem chatu be'inar karbonos. Remember, what was Chofni u'Pinchas's problem? They were taking karbonos, they weren't offering it in the right way. So the whole chet had to do with karbonos. V'yefshar lekorban lechaper lehem mishum de'en kategor nasar sanegor. You can't have the prosecutor defend the defendant. You don't bring a korban unless you did something unwittingly. For example, there are 36 averos where we bring a korban chatas. If we eat dam, if we eat chaylev, if we have relations with a woman who's related to us, or an Eishes Ish. Now, if you did those things b'mezid, which means you knew that it was prohibited, and you were warned by Eidim, so at least by Eishes Ish, you're put to death. But if you didn't know that this was an Eishes Ish, you're a shogeg, or you didn't know that this was a relative, you had a relative that you had never met, so only then can you bring a korban chatas to get kapora. So they were mezidim. Remember, we can't say that Chofti or Pinchas weren't warned. Remember, Eli already gave them a warning. Vehem lo shamu b'kolo, right? Because it says v'lo yishmu l'kol aviyem. Now, umasha amru, the oven beiseli miskaper lehem b'torah of gmilas chasadim. So that which we just learned by in Rava, that the chet of Eli could be miskaper with Torah and gmilas chesed. In a masha gmilas chasadim mechaper salem kvar biarnu, umasha that was explained le'el b'perek beis or umasha Torah mechaper salem nira lomar shezeu mishum that the Torah gdoila mekarbonos. Torah is even on a higher level than sacrifice. Ki korban mechaper rak achrei she'asa aveira. Korban atones for you after you did the Aveira. A korban doesn't work for you to develop a spirit within you to prevent you from doing Aveiras. The strength of Torah is greater. Learning Torah, it teaches you what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. The Torah magnim umatzli, hainu magnim min hayisurin, umatzli min hachet. It saves you from suffering and from chet. Lachen bebeis Eli, need that korbanos leim achapim alem. Okay, the korbanos didn't work. Nation nishrashu beit ba'aver shalem ad she'afshar yalav yeroisam minafsham. The chatan that we explained, since they were involved, korbanos couldn't be resolved. Aval b'toira shaper miskapim nesheyesh b'koach haTorah lagen aleim shlo yavo yoter lidei chet. But through Torah, it could prevent them further on. Then it says in the Mechilta, Misha Machalo Shem Shamayim. The person is Machalo Shem Shamayim. We know what it is to be Makadesh Shem Shamayim. Somebody sanctifies in public. He refuses to bow down to an idol and is killed. He's Makadesh Shem Shamayim. There are people who are Machalo Shem Shamayim. However, v'asa tshuva, ein koach b'tshuva litlos. Tshuva can't even suspend him, and lo yom kippurim mechaper. So there are different degrees of averos. Some averos, tshuva alone is enough. The Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva goes through all of this. Some averos you need tshuva and you need Yom Kippur. The actual act of living through the day of Yom Kippur atones for some of our chatoim, as long as we've done tshuva. Sometimes we need yisurim. Suffering comes to us because we need tshuva, Yom Kippur, and yisurim. V'lo yisurim b'vad mamrikin. Ela tshuva, v'yom kippurim toilin. So if you're machalo shem shamayim, tshuva and Yom Kippurim suspend you, hold you in abeyance. The Yisurim or Yom HaMisa memarkin. Your death or Yisurim clean you. Valzen namar imichupar avon azel lachem atumusun. V'omer michaper avon beisel b'zevach u'mincha b'zevach u'mincha in miskaper. Avon miskaper hu b'misa. Chofni u'pinchas did get kapara through misa. Another very interesting shot here. Ellen said, so Pasuk Yud Zayin, Eli says to Shmuel, Maha davar shediber alecha, what did Hashem say to you? Al nati kached mimeni. Don't hold back. He says like this, Hashem should do the same thing to you that he's doing to me. Im tichached mimeni. If you hold back, davar mikol davar shediber alecha. Look what happens. Pasuk Yud Ches. Vayagid lo Shmuel kol advarim. V'lo chiched mimenu. Shmuel tells everything over to Eli. Doesn't hold anything back. Says the Gemara in Makkas. Omer vavo. Kilal as chacham afilu al tnai hiba. Person should be very careful what you say. this curse that Eli gave to Shmuel, he said, if you don't tell me everything, such and such will happen to your children. And Shmuel fulfilled it. But what do we say? Al tiftach pe satan. Don't utter anything. Minolachem Eli. Even though it says Vayagid lo Shmuel Shmuel didn't hold anything back. It says in Shmuel Aleph Perek Ches, V'loholchu banav bedrachav. Shmuel's sons did not go in Shmuel's way. Shmuel didn't have hana from his children either. So this statement of Eli to Shmuel came true. Look how careful we have to be what we say to people.
I don't get the connection.
So
Eli,
Eli says to him, be careful. Tell me everything that Hashem said to you. Otherwise, Hashem should do to you the same thing, basically, that he's doing to me with my children.
But he does tell him everything. He doesn't.
But Ellen, that's what Chazal are teaching us. What does Yaakov Avinu say over there by his wife Rachel when Lavan comes? Whoever has these idols, okay. But so you got to be careful when a tzaddik says something. It will come true no matter what, and that's what happened here to Shmuel. Shmuel fulfilled what Eli wanted. It just shows the power of the mouth, how careful we have to be when we utter something. It's a frightening concept. But that's why I thought it was important to learn it. Okay, we finished pretty much. There might be one or two more things we'll mention next week before we start Perek Daled. I think we did Perek Gimel very well in this way. Are there any comments, questions, other ha'aros that anybody wants to make about anything we discussed? Okay.
It's a very powerful perek.
Yes, very
Scary.
but as you said, Eli was a